Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Remember a couple of months ago, Sandra Coughlin? I think she's the outgoing principal at Glenbard South High School.
Definitely. She's definitely leaving.
Yeah. She had trouble remembering the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegedly, she had trouble. It was accidental, not purposeful, to leave out the sections of the pledge that she let out at a assembly.
Would you please rise for the presentation of the colors by the Flanagan drill team and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem. Gentlemen, please remove your caps. I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was just a mistake, though. She was having a senior moment in her 40s.
Forgot the United States and forgot
Under
God,
God.
obviously. Yeah, she apologized. Big mistake.
Dear students, parents, and community members,
Soft
at what should have been a celebratory event at the class of 2021's commencement ceremony, I made a horrific mistake by accidentally omitting some key clauses to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Very sincere apologies. The contrition is lovely, really.
Glenbard South High School, it seems unlikely, but I don't know. I guess it's possible. But maybe Glenbard South High School doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt, as so few government school systems do these days. Glenbard South High School's Justice in July 2.0. Continue the work of our Raider staff surrounding the issues of race, equity, self-reflection, and personal growth. There's a practicum that lays the groundwork to promote courageous conversations. Are there any other kind from the left? Courageous conversations among staff and the greater Glenbard community to examine our practices, policies, our curricula to align our district's mission of embracing diversity. Self-paced learning opportunity for staff. So the indoctrination, you indoctrinate the indoctrinators so they can indoctrinate the kids when they come back to school with their masks on. And by the way, how much of this is, whether intentional or unintentional, a misdirection play. I mean, you're fighting the battle over the nature of what learning will be, and you sort of also have to fight the battle of what learning they intend for your child. This courageous conversations practicum, 4 agreements: stay engaged, experience discomfort, speak your truth. Expect and accept non-closure. Those are the agreements to participate in courageous conversations. Really get the most out of this. Speak your truth. That's not a tell. Oh, no. 6 conditions. Focus on personal, local, and immediate. Isolate race. Normalize social construction and multiple perspectives. Monitor agreements and conditions and establish parameters. Use a working definition for race. Examine the presence and role of whiteness. And there's a whole series of things that they're to consume, TED Talks about white privilege and, racial history in America, anti-racism, confabs, and so on and so forth. Read Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Do I see anything from, can't find anything from Bob Woodson. Shelby Steele,
sure
Thomas Sowell, anybody? So that's what Glenbard South High School is doing. So, since you're going to the school board meetings anyway, or many of you are, I know.
I love it. Good for them.
Since you're going anyway to talk about masks, why not broaden the topics and focus on curriculum too? I want my kid back to school in this format, and I want the curriculum to reflect this. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Peter Wood, president of the National Association of Scholars. Peter, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning.
Morning. So, the efforts continue throughout the summer just because school's not in session, and maybe never will be again, who knows, in some places. But just because it's not in session doesn't mean that you don't have these staff workshops to continue to hone their craft of promoting Marxist ideology when the kids do come back.
Right. I think this is a crucial period in which the teachers who are reluctant to engage in this propaganda have to be bullied into compliance, and that's what our principals and other administrators are doing this summer. It's a massive mobilization of the bullies nationwide to make sure the teachers behave themselves.
You know, I'm sure you saw this. We talked about it yesterday. This college pledge out of Dallas from a local uh, identitarian group there wants white people to commit to not sending their kids to Ivy League or top 50 U.S. according to U.S. News and World Report, top 50 colleges to make room for more Black and Latinx students to go to those good schools. Maybe we should extend the pledge down, and you shouldn't be allowed to go to top 50 high schools in your state either. That would certainly change the composition of these Tony suburban schools that are 99% white and 99% in the 1% and spend all their time talking about Black people.
It might change the willingness of those suburban taxpayers to keep paying for those suburban schools that their kids can't attend. Yes, it's an interesting thought experiment, if nothing else, that we're all this liberal effort to convince people that we live in a racist society is now going to take a bite out of their own lives if they really follow through with it. Their kids are going to be deprived of the education that they moved to the suburbs for in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I just want people to live their truth, like those Glenn Bard style teachers. Speak your truth and live that truth, too. You wrote an interesting piece, Spectator, about what you call the new anger in America. And and I'll let you develop it, but it seems to me that like this, courageous conversation stuff, all the anti-racism stuff, is sort of a passive-aggressive expression of new anger.
I think that's exactly right. What I meant by new anger, by the way, is this sense that you can perform anger and be applauded for it. Anger becomes not something that you necessarily feel deeply, but it's something that you learn how to show and get the rewards for showing it if you put on a ace performance of it. New anger is a way of saying that the old ethic of trying to hold back and find a way to make peace with yourself and with others is now obsolete. What instead is you now lead with your aggressive side and you push it on other people. Well, that's a lot of what the Black Lives Matter movement extolled, and it's a big piece of the American left now, and that you don't mobilize people unless you get them angry first, and if you can't get them angry, at least you get them afraid not to pretend to be angry. So that's where we are. I think this new anger has been, in play for quite a while. It's not something that happened just overnight, but it's intensified. Part of the intensification of it is the American left trying to rouse up a tidal wave of support for their destructive programs. But to the extent that they've succeeded, and we've got school districts doing what you've described, and we've had the 2020 election, we've also now got a form of anger taking its place on the American right. And that anger I tend to call not new anger, but wrath. I think what we're facing here is an awakening among American people who's saying, our rights are being taken away, our sense of who we are as a nation is eroded, and if this goes on, what's it going to mean to be an American anymore?
Well, does that right-wing group have a name, and are they angry, or are they angry and violent?
Well, I don't think they're violent. There's been no evidence of violence yet. Their anger could become violent if they're pushed hard enough, and I'm aware of that possibility. I don't welcome it, but I think that when you take all the alternatives for legal redress away from people and push them into despair, you're playing with dangerous materials. but the left constantly says that it's the angry right that is violent, but the only violence that we've seen really has been from the left or from the people who enact the program of the left. Notoriously, the only person killed in the riot at the Capitol on January 6th was Ashley Babbitt, who was shot by a Capitol Hill police officer. We now know that person's name, although it's not officially divulged. But the violence, well, where is it? A bunch of people crowding into the building, wearing outlandish costumes and carrying hand-lettered signs is aggressive, but it's not violent in the sense of producing significant injury for other people. But the violence is certainly ready and waiting on both sides if people get pushed too far.
Something else that's happening since talk of public health and medicine is all the rage. Katie Herzog, writing over at Barry Weiss's Substack, has been doing a series on how ideology is infecting medical schools. During a recent, let me just give you this passage and get your reaction. She writes, during a recent endocrinology course at a top medical school in the University of California system, a professor stopped mid-lecture to apologize for something he had said at the beginning of class. Quoting the professor, "I don't want you to think that I'm in any way trying to imply anything, and if you can summon some generosity to forgive me, I would really appreciate it." The physician, doctor, medical school professor, says to his class, "Again, I'm very sorry for that. It certainly wasn't my intention to offend anyone. The worst thing that I can do as a human being is be offensive." That's a statement in of itself, but his offense, the offensive term, he used the phrase pregnant pregnant women because, of course, not just women can be pregnant.
Right.
And he apologized to the class, a physician, professor, top medical school. And also this, the worst thing I can do as a human being is be offensive. Is that the worst thing you can do as a human being?
There are a million things worse than being offensive, and one of the things to be worse than offensive is to be a worm, somebody who just bends to the will of everybody else, regardless of whether it's right or wrong. The medical schools have been overtaken with this ideology, especially on the transgender stuff, where they're now no longer allowed, without deep apologies, to talk about the differences between men and women. Sex is a forbidden subject precisely among people who have to deal with it professionally once they become active physicians.
Yeah.
There was another story along these lines the other day of a woman who was pretending to be a man came into a hospital with severe pains. They treated her as a man, not realizing that she was pregnant, and she failed to divulge that fact. In the end, lost the baby. But these lies have consequences, and they are going to confuse medical practitioners, doctors, nurses, and others. And to the extent that we just go along with them and pretend that who you think you are is who you really are, we are living in a fool's paradise. Well, maybe not a paradise, it's a fool's hell, but we're imposing it on ourselves.
Peter Wood, President, National Association of Scholars. Peter, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
The Lou Dobbs Financial Report is brought to you by Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Visit signaturebank.bank for your commercial banking needs.
I'm Lou Dobbs. Lysol sales plunge as the pandemic eases and inflation rages. Inflation is worrying executives at 3M. Wages for many jobs have doubled in 12 months. Those stories are next. If you're like me, towels just didn't seem to dry anymore. When you were in the store, they felt smooth and soft, but at home, they just didn't absorb very well. That was before Mike Lindell found the best towel company right here in the USA. Just go to MyPillow.com and enter my promo code DOBBS for deep discounts on these soft, thirsty towels that